Hi, welcome back to my channel and my next novel writing tips video. So you have your idea, your plot, your characters, your setting, maybe even an outline. And now you have the monumental task of actually sitting down and writing. And this is probably the most difficult part for anyone who wants to write, is actually sitting down and writing. And so I'm going to be discussing some tips to help you actually get started. Something you probably hear a lot is, I have this really good idea for a novel, but I just don't know how to get started. It's too hard. I would say that less than 1% of people who say they want to write a novel actually even do any writing on it at all. And probably even less than that actually complete a novel. It's kind of astounding how many people would love to write a novel but never actually do. And that's because writing is hard. It takes discipline, and it can be very difficult to, one, get started, and two, to finish. And that's why I'm trying to give some tips on how to get started and how to finish your novel, because those are two completely different things. So let's start with, of course, the beginning of how to get started. Since getting started is probably the hardest part of the whole writing process, you might be wondering, well, how do I do it? And there's no quick and easy way to actually get started. Something you'll hear a lot on the writing forums and even advice from different authors is just write. And those can be some of the two most frustrating words that you can hear. But it's true. You have to sit down and write. You just have to do it. That being said, however, there are a few tips that can help make the process a little bit easier. It can be really intimidating when you open up your notebook or your Word document and it's blank and you're responsible for filling it, and you go, oh my gosh, I need this to be perfect. This is my opening. I need it to hook the readers and get them to read more. And you just freeze and you don't know what to do. And you're like, oh, but how do I open this? And that's what trips up so many people. And I'm here to tell you that your opening, your first pages don't matter. Not on your first draft. Your first draft, the whole goal of the first draft is to just get words on the page. You want to get your rough idea of your story on the page, and then you can fix it later in editing. That's why I try not to worry too much about where my story starts. And I just go, and then I can change the beginning if I need to, and it's not usually that difficult. Something that does help, though, think about your story and think about what the inciting incident is. The inciting incident is what compels your character to go do whatever it is the plot of the story is. For example, the hero's journey. You have your hero. They want something. So let's take, for example, Star Wars. Luke wants more than his life that he has. He wants to join the rebellion. He wants to, do something. That's what he wants. But that's not the inciting incident. That's just what he wants. The inciting incident is actually when his aunt and uncle are killed. That is the trigger point which tells him, okay, he can now go on this journey. He needs to go on this journey. He needs to be part of the rebellion. And so that's the thing that triggers him to go on his hero's journey. And so not every story is going to have a hero's journey, but that's what the inciting incident is. That's what kind of triggers the whole plot. And you'll usually hear that it's best to start closest to the action. And again, action doesn't actually have to be action. It can just be whatever the inciting incident is. It doesn't have to be super close to it, but you'll want to get there soon enough to get the reader hooked. But that's only think about that as advice to get you started. Don't worry about how close or how far away you are from that when you get started. just have it in your mind going, okay, well, maybe I'll start here and we'll see where that goes. And you can always lengthen that out, shorten it up in editing. So don't worry too much about it. Your beginning will almost certainly change in some fashion, and that's okay. Now, if you are an outliner, you may have already figured this out in your outline, and that's perfectly fine. You may even still have issues, though, figuring out exactly what words to put. But again, just you know how you're going to begin it, at least what the scene should be. Just start writing. Just you can change it and figure it out later. Don't put so much pressure on yourself when you're doing a first draft. First drafts are not meant to be read by anybody but yourself. So it's okay. And I might do a video about beta readers and all that later. But yeah, your first draft, you're the only one that's going to be reading it. So don't worry about how it flows and if you use the correct words or not. That's okay. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. So now that you've got your beginning and you've started writing, how do you keep writing? And you will hear a lot, and this is true, that you need to treat writing like a job. And it doesn't need to be, a 40-hour-a-week job. It just means that you need to set a schedule and stick to it. It means that you have to treat it like something that you have to do. And this may not sound fun, and you're right. Writing is not always fun. It's a common misconception. Anybody who's an artist will tell you that art is not always fun. Sometimes you have to do tedious things for the art to come together. Writing, a lot of it can be fun, and a lot of it can be really tedious and annoying. And it doesn't mean that the writing is bad. It just means that maybe you have to write a scene that isn't as exciting. Chances are you have some scenes already formed in your head of how they're going to go, and you really want to get there, or you really want to get to a certain part of the story, but you have to write about this other stuff because it's important, but it's not as exciting to write, like if somebody's traveling somewhere and you can't just say, oh yeah, they traveled and they're there. You're like, all right, I have to do this. Or, okay, I have a love story, but see, I can't just have them meet and then get together 10 pages later. I actually have to develop this thing. So you have to do a lot of work that isn't necessarily fun. And so that's a couple of reasons why you have to treat writing like a job, because it very much is like a job. So some tips to make it less tedious for you is you want to set a word count for yourself, or a certain number of hours a day or week that you're going to set aside to write. I like to do word count because I will be really lazy and I'll just sit there and be like, oh, I wrote a little bit today. I wrote 100 words. That's fine, right? But you won't make a lot of progress that way. And if you can only write 100 words a day and that's your limit, that's fine. But you have to figure out what word count or hours per day or per week that you are comfortable with. And then you have to make yourself do that. So for me, what I usually do when I'm drafting is just writing. The first draft is not editing or anything like that. I try to set a word count of 1,000 words a day for 5 days a week. So I try to get at least 5,000 words a week in. And if I go a little over one day or a little under one day, that's okay, as long as I have about 5,000 words in a week that is completed. And I do it by word count because, again, I'll sit there and I will procrastinate and I have to make myself do it. And I'm like, I have this 1,000 words. I got to reach it. And sometimes it's really easy and sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes, I get 1,000 words in less than an hour. It's like, okay, whatever. Sometimes I'm sitting there for a couple going, oh my gosh, what do I do? Sometimes I'll break it up. Sometimes I'll eat lunch and then come back to it later. But 1,000 words it is a little bit of a challenge, but it's comfortable in that I know I can do it. I just have to actually do it. Now, for some people, like I said, 100 words may be all you feel comfortable with, and that's fine. If you want to do 100 words a day, That's fine, but make sure you're actually doing 100 words a day. For some people, it may be, well, I have 1 hour of spare time a day to write. So I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to use that whole hour to write. And that's fine. So you can do it by time versus word count if you'd like. If you have a really hectic schedule and you only have a couple times a week you can actually write, give yourself a weekly goal or even a monthly goal. But you need to set goals, and as with a job, you need to try very hard to meet those goals. Now, nobody's going to scold you if you don't meet them except yourself, but you're not doing yourself any favors by not meeting those. But that being said, because I know some people can be really hard on themselves, if you set a goal and you just cannot meet it, not because if you don't meet it because you're pressing or being lazy, maybe you need to force yourself to do it. But if you've set a goal and you just are so busy and it's stressing you out and you just cannot reach it, try resetting your goal. Set it to something that is more achievable. Again, this goes back to find something that is comfortable for you. Maybe a little challenging, but something that you can reasonably do within a day or a week or a month. And if you're able to consistently hit those goals, maybe you can increase it at some point. But this way, at least you can have steady forward progress on your writing versus just sitting there and pecking away at it and not really going anywhere. Because it's really hard to get started and it's also really hard to finish. So how do you finish your novel? Well, there's a couple definitions of finished, and a lot of people argue that a novel is never finished. But for argument's sake, let's just say that finished just means your first draft. Your first draft is finished. Because when you have written a first draft, you have written a novel. It may not be like a polished novel or whatever, but it is a novel, and you should feel damn proud of yourself if you can do that. So finishing is really a matter of sticking to your plan, your schedule. And if you can do that, you can finish. It's just a matter of getting the right amount of words on a page. Now, this can be somewhat of an issue if you are not an outliner, because for an outliner, you already have your outline, you know where it's going to end. If you're a pantser, like me, you may not know exactly where your story is going to end. And this is why I would suggest, if you are a pantser, to at least have your ending in mind. So you know kind of the beats and where you're going to end, because otherwise you can go on forever. So once you have your ending in mind, you are just writing to get to that point. And when you're writing a novel for the first time, don't worry about the word count. If you're way under or way over a normal novel word count, that's okay. You can either fix it in editing or just say, this is a good attempt, I'm going to write a different novel. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you just have to keep chugging away at it until you get to the end. And it's so satisfying when you write the words "the end." Even if you're never going to actually have that in the novel, it's just type "the end." It's wonderful. You feel such a sense of completion when you're done writing your first draft. And this is not by no means the end of the process. I think you might hate me, but drafting your novel is actually, out of the entire process of writing, once you've gotten started, the next hardest part is all the stuff after you're done drafting. Editing is great, and it is a pain in the butt. But that is for another video. And even if you never ever edit your novel, if you've at least finished a first draft, that's really good. Most people never ever finish a novel. Think about everybody that you've talked to who has wanted to write a novel. How many of them have actually finished a novel? I am going to guess not too many, unless like you're in a writing group. But even then, a lot of people in writing groups, they want to finish a novel, but they never do. And so this is why it is so important to treat your writing like a job, to stick to a schedule, and to force yourself to sit down and write. Don't torture yourself, but you have to sit down and write. Something I would like everyone to keep in mind while they are starting this process and while they're going through it is, do I want to write? And am I passionate about writing? And the reason I use these words instead of do I like writing is because you're not always going to like writing. You should like it some of the time, but it's more, do you have an overall passion for it that you have to write? You love it. You may not always like it, but you love it. That old adage, you may not have to like each other, but you have to love each other. That's writing. And if you are going through the process and realize and you're not passionate about it, you don't love it, it's never been fun for you, you may not want to be a writer. You may have that desire of, oh, I would love to be a writer, that'd be great, but you may just not be cut out for it, and that's fine. Everyone has different, talents and, likes, desires, all that sort of stuff. And you shouldn't torture yourself if you're trying to do this and it's just torture. Once in a while, writing will be torturous even for those of us who love it. Believe me, I know. But it's not always that way. There are times when it's great. But if it's just beating your head against a wall and you absolutely hate doing it, maybe you might want to consider a different artistic hobby. Sometimes if you want to write, maybe it's because you want to do something else artistic, but you're not really good at that either. That just means that you need to practice in those skills. Like, say you want to draw, but you're not very good at drawing. And you try writing because, oh, I want to draw this comic, but I can't draw very well, so I'm just going to write it instead. But, oh, writing is just the worst. The fact of the matter may be that you just need to practice drawing. You will never get better at anything unless you practice. That same goes with writing. So, on the other hand, if you are writing and you do feel passionate about it, you want to do it, but, oh, the stuff you're making is just terrible, don't worry about how terrible it is. Every single piece of writing you do, no matter how bad it is great practice. And this will only help you become a better writer. And that's why I don't want people to get discouraged when they write something and either they think it's bad or other people think it's bad. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It sucks to get criticism, but it's important and it's only going to make your writing better. So if you feel that passion for writing, but your writing's not where you want it to be, just keep going. It will get better, I promise. Read a lot, write a lot, and it will get better. I started writing when I was like 9. I can tell you my writing is not nearly as bad as it was when I was 9. Hell, my writing's way better than it was 5 years ago. I wrote my first actual complete novel 5 years ago, and that was horrible. And now I've had a lot more experience with it, and it's much better. And that's what you'll find. You need to practice at it. So that's what I want you to take away from this part is, if you're not passionate about it, try something else. I don't want you to torture yourself with writing if it's not for you. I mean, certainly if you want to keep plugging away at it and trying it, go for it, but don't torture yourself. And don't torture yourself if you love writing, but it's not where you want it to be yet. That's okay. Even the most well-known professional artists, writing and otherwise, are not happy with their work 100% of the time. Most authors will tell you, I would love to go back and fix one of my old novels. Like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. Or I'd like to even fix the current one. It's off for editing. Well, it's as good as I can make it. This happens all the time, so it's okay. So these were some basic tips for how to sit down, write your novel, and potentially finish your novel. And these are, of course, very basic, but there's not a whole lot that anyone can tell you for how to sit down and get this done, because it's work. The words aren't going to write themselves, so you just got to do it, and it's not always fun. But hopefully these tips maybe make the process a little bit easier for you, make you feel a little bit better about yourself. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. Writing is usually a hobby for most people. For some lucky people, it becomes a job, or unlucky, depending on if they like it or not. But yeah, so hopefully this was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be doing more of these in the future. I may not have these every week. It just depends. I'm also doing book reviews. I am doing a 1 year of books challenge. That just means I am trying to read at least one book a week for a year, and it has to be a book I've never read before. And I'm doing reviews of pretty much all those books, and you should see one of those each week. If you would like to see what books I am reading, you can follow the hashtag 1 year of books on Twitter, or you can follow me on Twitter at author M.E. Kennedy. Or you can just check it out, or you can just say, nope, I'm not following you. I'm not doing that, which is perfectly fine. You can just see the book reviews if you like. And if you have any questions or comments about any more novel writing tips or any other aspects about writing, go ahead and leave it down in the comment section and I will get back to you. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.